Thank you for joining us today at nephrologyusa.com, the #1 website for nephrology jobs in the United States. My name is Martin Osinski. I'm president of Nephrology USA, and I want to spend the next few minutes discussing how to put together a curriculum vitae. It's important to realize that many of the people that will see your curriculum vitae for the first time will not have met you. Therefore, whether you're responding to a journal ad, a website, or dealing with a recruiting firm, the first impression they're going to have of you is from that curriculum vitae. That's why it's extremely important that it be done correctly. Your CV has to be geared toward the type of position you're applying for. And yes, there are differences for whether you're applying for an academic position versus a clinical one. Either way, though, your CV has to come across as very professional and answer a lot of questions for the reader about you. An academic practice is going to need to have a heavier emphasis on your academic background, the presentations you've done, the research you have been involved in, any grants, publications, grand rounds, and other things that reflect your research or teaching responsibilities. A curriculum vitae geared toward clinical practice will be less detailed, and a lot of things that we talked about for academics aren't as important. It needs to focus more on your training and your accomplishments and your involvement in the clinical setting. Either way, though, you want to present a clear and concise picture of your background. Putting your name on the curriculum vitae is obviously a good way to start. Include your address, your contact information, telephone numbers, email addresses, and so on. But make sure that these are numbers that you want to be called at. If you're currently in a practice, you probably don't want to be contacted at your current employer. If you don't want to be called at home, don't put your home number on there. But you want to put numbers that you can be reached at. Same thing with your email address. Make sure it's an account that you actually check. After your contact information, you want to start with where you are today. If you're coming out of fellowship, start with your current program and then work yourself down from there. If you're currently employed, start with your work history today. Be sensitive, obviously, to the fact that you have practice information that you might not want to share at this point, but you could be generic on the fact that you're working in a nephrology practice today in a general location. With everything, though, you want to start with where you are now. As I said, starting with the fellowship program, and work your way down from there, residency program, medical school, and then undergraduate. For a clinical practice, you should probably limit your CV to no more than 2 or 3 pages, especially if you're just coming right out of training. It probably won't be read if it's much longer than that. You also want to make sure the font sizes are legible. I've seen a lot of curriculum vitaes where people tend to put their telephone numbers and email addresses in very small fonts for style reasons, and it's very difficult for people to read. When including any professional experience that you've had, be sure to include months and years that you worked there. Be sure to include licensure, certification, board eligibility. If you're a member of any professional societies, it's good to include that there. Any honors and awards never hurt. But again, everything's in chronological order. If you were in the military, include your service dates and rank. Again, fill in any gaps. People tend to assume the worst. If you took a year to travel, include it. As mentioned previously, you also want to include some publications and presentations, but their importance does not have to be played up as much for clinical practice as they would in an academic setting. Your curriculum vitae should almost be like a fishing hook. Anything that you can put on there that will arouse interest and give them a reason to contact you is a plus. It isn't a bad idea to include any foreign language fluency that you might have or hobbies that you might enjoy doing, but it's important to send the right message. For example, if you were an avid skier, and you were applying for jobs in Florida, the obvious reader would think, why are you looking for a job in Florida if you like to ski? Why raise those questions if you don't have to? You want to put down personal information, especially as a fellow. There's nothing in there that's going to hurt you. For those that have been in practice for a number of years, you may want to be sensitive as to what you include as far as personal information for the opposite reasons that fellows have in their favor. Put enough there, though, to create interest, and that allows someone to give you the opportunity to sell yourself in person and not through a hard sell through the curriculum vitae. What about objective statements? I strongly feel that an objective statement, especially on a curriculum vitae for a fellow, is not that important. Your objective coming out of training is to find a job, and it's quite obvious to anybody looking. You can include those types of specifics you want in a cover letter, but again, make sure that what you're writing is applicable to the job you're applying for. Otherwise, you could be shooting yourself in the foot. Do not include your social security numbers on a curriculum vitae. There's plenty of identity theft out there, and I do know that it's required for fellowships and for grants, but don't put it on your CV. When you actually take the job, they'll ask for that information. Be sure to proofread your curriculum vitae thoroughly. I can't tell you the number of times I see the word nephrology misspelled on a curriculum vitae. Share it with colleagues that you trust to look at and review it. Also, use blank paper. Don't use letterhead or stationery or colored paper. If you're going to include references, put down references are available upon request rather than actually putting names out there. Why? Because especially if your CV is going out without you having a real understanding of the job, why would you want to risk having your references contacted and you not being interested in the opportunity down the line? The key points here to remember is that your curriculum vitae, especially if you're sending to someone you don't know, is going to be the first impression they have of you. It's imperative you make it a good one. I've been recruiting nephrologists for over 25 years. I'm confident whether you're looking for a position or looking for an associate, that Nephrology USA can help you. If you have any questions or want additional information, please feel free to call 800-367-3218. Enjoy our website. Thank you.